Hello and welcome. I'm Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching World Today. Hours to go before US President Donald Trump meets Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. After a successful virtual call where European leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke to President Trump and urged him to make a deal soon, but safeguarding their security concerns. President Putin also praised US efforts to solve the crisis. Here is a curtain raiser to the much-anticipated summit.
Less than 24 hours to go for the Trump-Putin meet in Alaska, the world is hoping that the summit will result in a ceasefire and bring peace and stability to Ukraine and Europe. After a successful virtual call among European leaders and Zelensky with the US President Donald Trump, leaders are hopeful that Trump will be able to make a deal with the Russian president. But their stand remains the same. Ukraine's future can't be determined without Ukraine. And this is the message that they have relayed to the US president.
Firstly, and obviously, there can be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. And that's been a long-standing principle of this group. And I know Vladimir is on the call and will be absolutely clear in relation to that. And along with that, that international borders cannot be and must not be changed by force. And again, that's a long-standing principle of this group. And alongside that, that any talk about borders, diplomacy, ceasefire has to sit alongside a robust and credible security guarantee to ensure that any peace, if there is peace, is lasting peace, and that Ukraine can defend its territorial integrity as part of any deal. And that's why this group was set up. That's why it's important we've all made the commitments that we have.
As leaders praised Trump's efforts to end the war, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London to shore up European support for efforts to prevent any agreement that would carve up Ukrainian land. As Zelensky gathers support from European leaders, Russian President Vladimir Putin, while addressing top officials, praised US's sincere effort to find solution for Ukraine crisis.
Уважаемые коллеги, добрый день. Попросил вас сегодня собраться.
I will tell you about the stage we are at. The current American administration, which, as everyone knows, is making, in my opinion, quite energetic and sincere efforts to stop the hostilities, stop the crisis, and reach agreements that are of interest to all parties involved in this conflict, in order to create long-term conditions for peace, both between our countries and in Europe and in the world. As a whole, if at the next stage we reach agreements in the area of control over strategic offensive weapons.
Kremlin also confirmed that both the leaders will give a joint press conference and lay out the results of the negotiations. Talks on bilateral cooperation in trade and economy and peace and security will be broadly discussed. The talks will be one-on-one, assisted by translators.
And naturally, the broader tasks of ensuring of peace and security will be discussed, as well as urgent international and regional issues. An exchange of views is expected on further developing bilateral cooperation, including in the trade and economic sphere. I would like to note that this cooperation is huge and unfortunately hitherto untapped potential. The talks will be business-like, and naturally we are all in the business mood.
И, к сожалению, не задействованный до сих пор потенциал.
But as the world waits for the meet that will be step forward to ending the war, Ukraine and Russia continue to pound each other. A Ukraine drone attack hit car, injuring 3 people in Russia's city of Belgorod. CCTV captured the moment of the blast, showing debris scattered across the road and a vehicle on the fire. Another footage captured the moment Ukrainian drone hit residential building in southern Russian state Rostov-on-Don, where 13 people were wounded. Russian forces had also seized 2 more settlements in Donetsk region. According to a statement released by the Russian Ministry of Defense, Russian forces continued the offensive on multiple fronts. gaining control of 2 more settlements in the Donetsk region and striking Ukrainian electronic warfare stations. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine had exchanged 84 prisoners of war from each other after mediation by the United Arab Emirates a day before the crucial meet. It said all the freed Russians were currently in Belarus, where they were receiving psychological and medical assistance. Trump has claimed that he will get to know within 2 minutes of the meeting whether a deal can be made or not. He has also said that he will meet again with Putin and Zelensky and have told European leaders that he does not intend to discuss any possible division of territory. So it's a wait and watch till leaders of 2 major nuclear nations meet. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
Meanwhile, India is also keenly watching the Alaska summit, as US Secretary of Treasury Scott Besant has warned for new secondary tariffs on India if talks between President Trump and President Putin fails. This comes after he called India a bit recalcitrant over trade agreements.
A week after US President Donald Trump imposed a 25% additional tariff on India over its continued purchase of Russian oil, Washington has once again hinted at further economic pressure. In a recent interview, US Treasury Secretary Scott Besant warned that the US may consider increasing secondary tariffs on India if the upcoming talks between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska fails. Besant said, "We have put secondary tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, and I could see if things don't go well, then sanctions or secondary tariffs could go up." Trump and Putin are scheduled to meet in Alaska on August 15th to discuss the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict and explore a possible roadmap for peace. Besant's remark come just a day after he described India as being a bit recalcitrant in trade negotiations, despite ongoing trade negotiation between the 2 countries.
The big trade deals that aren't done aren't agreed. You know, Switzerland's still around. India's been a bit recalcitrant.
India, meanwhile, has made it clear that it will pursue an independent and diversified trade policy. As relations with Washington face increasing strain, New Delhi is expanding its economic outreach. In a significant development, India and China are currently in discussions to resume border talks after a 5-year pause.
This has been part of India-China conversation in several of our meetings. We have remained engaged with the Chinese side to facilitate the resumption of border trade through all the designated trade points, namely Lipulekh Pass in Uttarakhand, Shipkila Pass in Himachal Pradesh, and Nathula Pass in Sikkim.
With Chinese Foreign Minister scheduled to visit India on August 18th for crucial border talk, India and China trying to normalize their relations post-Galwan bitterness. Prime Minister Modi is also likely to visit China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin later this month. Even as India maintains dialogue with Washington, a comprehensive trade agreement remains elusive. Trade negotiations have continued for several months without a breakthrough. All eyes are now on the next round of talks, as US delegation is expected to arrive in New Delhi on August 25th. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
And now India Today's Rohit Sharma joins this broadcast from Washington, D.C. Rohit, what is there going on in Washington, D.C.? We heard US Treasury Secretary Scott Besant calling India being recalcitrant in trade negotiations. What exactly being implied here that India is being recalcitrant, and also is India being made a collateral here?
Well, I think one would assume that, and I think that's a fair assumption at this point in time, that I think even President Trump this morning went on Fox Radio and said the exact same thing, that he assumes that maybe that this additional tariffs have put pressure on the Russians to come back and have them negotiate with the Americans. And I think this is another strategic point that we've been discussing for some days, which is what Besant said this morning, is this threat of additional tariffs, is the threat of, if things don't go well, we could do something more. So I probably see this, heading into the meeting in Alaska tomorrow as trying to recalibrate certain things, and also trying to put pressure on the Russians to say, hey, look, we want to put additional tariffs of India right now. We've left other countries. We haven't done anything with the Chinese. But if things don't go well, we have the option to put additional penalties. And I think that's exactly what Besant was doing. He was being a good soldier this morning on a news show, I think.
But Rohit, I'm sure you must have seen the statement by the Ministry of External Affairs today. The MEA spokesperson clearly said it was a very well-crafted, well-calibrated statement where the MEA said that India remained committed for engagement with the United States, and this relationship is based on shared values, shared the strategic interest, and as well as people-to-people contact. So what happens here? Like after what are you picking up as far as the trade negotiations are concerned? Is US team coming to India?
Well, that is true. They haven't stopped negotiating. The delegation will be coming to New Delhi. We've been told that we're trying to have this trade deal and trying not to make much about it. I think there has to be a lot that has to happen. But I think the Indian side at least wants to preserve what it can and believes that there are other areas where there is a lot of commitment from both the nations that have been built over years. So I think, yes, the trade negotiations will go. I think India is pursuing what it was doing.
Let's hope so, Rohit. Thank you very much for joining this broadcast, and Rohit Sharma giving us the perspective that what is going on in Washington, D.C. And now I'm being joined by Angela Stent, Senior Fellow from the Brookings Foreign Policy Institute, and an acclaimed author because she has written a book, fantastic book on President Putin, calling the President Putin's world. Dr. Stent, my first question to you would be, given your experience on research work on President Putin and his personality, which is reflected in your book, what do you think that he would be aiming to achieve in this Alaska summit with President Donald Trump? And how might his KGB days tactics shape the conversation there?
So I think that what he's hoping to achieve is clearly the end of his isolation from the West. He's been invited to the United States for the first time in 10 years. He wants to make sure that President Trump doesn't impose any more sanctions on Russia or do any more to support Ukraine. And he wants to make sure that he comes out of this with Donald Trump believing that they can at some point come to make a peace deal on Ukraine, although I think that's not going to happen this time. And the other thing is President Trump has offered Russia all of these economic deals, including investing in oil projects in Alaska. Putin is bringing over a business delegation with him too. So I think they hope to come out of this with some concrete business deals and maybe hoping that the United States will lift some of the sanctions on Russia, and that Russia will then appear to be as a great power and equal of the United States. And I think those are all his goals in this.
But Professor Sint, both President Donald Trump and President Putin are known for their big personalities and needed for dominance. So based on your study and experience, how do you see these two egos interacting on this table, and could their chemistry help or hinder a deal on Ukraine?
So I think they appear to have pretty good chemistry with each other. That is to say that President Trump has always admired President Putin. You ask about President Putin's KGB background. He was a KGB case officer. He was also a judo champion in his youth. And so he's very good at understanding people's weaknesses, appealing to their vanity. And so I think he understands how to appeal to President Trump. And President Trump, I think, believes that Putin wants to have a better relationship with him. So yes, these are two outside personalities. I would say President Trump is often much more unpredictable than President Putin is, but President Putin can also spring surprises. So I think they will also be sizing each other up during this Alaska meeting.
But Angela, your book highlights President Putin's goal of restoring Russia's global influence. Do you think he sees this meeting as, as an opportunity to get a diplomatic win, or regardless of the outcome, he is going to take it as a business as usual?
So I think he does believe this will be a diplomatic win, and it is, because he has been invited to the United States, again, ending the West's isolation of Putin. President Putin, of course, has not been isolated in the past 3 years because Russia enjoys close relations with China. The Russian-Indian relationship is rather strong, and then with other countries in the global south. But for him, the triumph will be to say, here, I was received by the US president as an equal in the United States. And this shows that we are indeed a great power not to be trifled with.
Thank you very much, Angela Stent, for joining on this broadcast and sharing your thoughts and perspective on this big summit meeting, which would be taking place in Alaska. Thank you very much. And moving on, let's talk about Pakistan-US chemistry as well. Because after Pakistan's Army Chief General Field Marshal Asim Munir's second visit to the United States, Secretary of State Marco Rubio wished Pakistan on its Independence Day and said that the United States deeply appreciates Pakistan's engagement on counterterrorism and trade. Marco Rubio said that the United States is looking forward for economic cooperation, which includes critical mineral and hydrocarbons. The United States has also declared the Balochistan Liberation Army a terrorist organization. The US designated BLA and its alias the Majid Brigade as foreign terrorist organization. Both the countries also held a counterterrorism dialogue recently in Islamabad and reaffirmed their commitment to fighting militancy. Donald Trump hosted Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir at the White House for a dinner, and this was the first time a US president had hosted head of Pakistan Army. And now let's talk about the Gaza-Israel conflict. Israel's far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich said that work would start for a long-delayed settlement that would divide the West Bank and cut it off from the East Jerusalem. This, according to his office, would bury the idea of Palestinian state. Smotrich said that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump had agreed to the revival of the even scheme, though there was no immediate confirmation either from the office of either US President Donald Trump or Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel froze the construction plan in 2012 and in 2020 because the objections raised by the United States and European allies who considered the project a threat for the future of Palestinian state. Palestinians fear the settlement building in West Bank, which has sharply intensified since October 7 Hamas attack, will rob them for any chance to build a state of their own in the area. Palestinians across the West Bank and in Jerusalem have rejected the plan.
Whoever in the world is trying to recognize a Palestinian state today will receive our answer on the ground, not with documents, nor with decisions or statements, but with facts. Facts of houses, facts of neighborhoods, roads, and of more and more Jewish families building lives. They will speak of the false Palestinian dream. We will continue to build a fulfilling Jewish reality. This reality definitively buries the idea of a Palestinian state, simply because there is nothing to recognize and no one to recognize.
קוברת סופית את רעיון המדינה הפלסטינית.
And now let's talk about a story from the tech world. Following a public spat on X between OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and XAI founder Elon Musk over Apple's App Store, tension escalated as ChatGPT and Grok took unexpected sides, further intensifying the feud. Let's have a look at this report.
It is Grok versus ChatGPT, and the AI showdown has just got personal. Days after public feud on X between Elon Musk and Sam Altman over Apple allegedly favoring ChatGPT on the Apple Store, tensions escalated further. In a surprising twist, Grok, the AI developed by Musk's own XAI, took Altman's side, leaving its creator red-faced. The clash began when Musk accused Apple of promoting ChatGPT over other competing AI apps, threatening legal action. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, quickly fired back, accusing Musk of hypocrisy, especially of manipulating X's algorithm to favor his own ventures. But the real shocker came when a user asked Grok who was right. Response from Grok stunned users when it backed Sam Altman. The AI cited verified evidence pointing to the rise of other AI apps like DeepSeek and Perplexity 2025 as counterexamples to Musk's antitrust claims. It also referred 2023 reports alleging manipulation by Musk of X's algorithm for personal gain, calling the behavior hypocritical. Later, Musk took his case to ChatGPT, asking AI who was more trustworthy. Ironically, ChatGPT sided with Musk. And thus begins yet another chapter of power struggle between two AI giants. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.